Hello, welcome to Relational and Emotional Intelligence. My name is Dr. Kenneth Acha. We're going to be focusing on the importance of emotional intelligence coaching in orphans and vulnerable children. The problem we're going to be looking at is the fact that adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs, disproportionately affect orphans and vulnerable children. Now, what are ACEs and who experiences them? In this image here, we see that ACEs, or adverse childhood experiences, are potentially traumatic events that children go through. And by children, we're talking about people from 0 to 17 years of age. And these include things such as neglect and or experiencing or witnessing violence and things like that. In this second part of the slide here, we see some major categories of ACEs, or types of ACEs. We see abuse: emotional, physical, sexual. And one thing I want to note for people taking this course is that ACEs are suffered by children all over the world, but especially children from difficult backgrounds, and orphans and vulnerable children suffer many different ACEs, and you should keep in mind as we go through that these are things that every single orphan that you're going to deal with, that a child from difficult backgrounds that has lost their parents and is needing to be provided for and taken care of, that they've gone through many of these. So again, emotional, physical, sexual abuse. Many orphans have suffered that, and almost every orphan has suffered some kind of emotional neglect or physical neglect. Now, some childhood challenges that not every orphan may have seen or experienced: substance misuse, mental illness, divorce or separation. Losing your parents is worse than divorce and separation. Incarceration, having somebody whose parents were incarcerated, and things like that. And other forms of adversity that qualify as ACEs: bullying. Many children, many orphans who don't have parents often are bullied. Community violence sometimes, and we see that some of them, these ones like natural disasters, refugee or wartime experiences, witnessing or experiencing acts of terrorism, may not be very common, but again, every orphan and vulnerable child you're going to see is going to have had numerous of this, and is at risk of many of the harms that are tied to ACEs. So who experiences ACEs? Again, we're looking at this slide here. Much of the research that has been done on ACEs to date has been done in rich countries like the United States and countries in Europe. But the experiences of these adverse events or experiences in childhood are common in children all over the world, and more common in orphans and vulnerable children. Okay, so here, of this study in the US, 61% of people that were studied, of thousands of people that were studied, 144,000 adults, indicated that they experienced at least one type of ACE. 16% reported 4 or more ACEs. And if you were to do this study on orphans, the numbers would be huge. The number would be huge. Every orphan, this would be 100%, and this would be a huge percent, not 16, would be way higher. Orphans and vulnerable children are at very high risk for ACEs. So ACEs, why is it important to study ACEs? ACEs are very important to study because ACEs impact health and well-being, not just when people are young and in their childhood years, but the impact of that we see lasts a lifetime in many people. This image here from the CDC shows us the mechanism by which adverse childhood events or experiences influence health and well-being throughout the lifespan. Note the lifespan here. We see that this ACEs right here on the third level, adverse childhood experiences, but these experiences don't come out of the blue. Many of them have generational embodiment, historical trauma in grandparents, in parents. Grandparents suffered through something, were abused themselves and then abused their parents, and or poverty and living in very difficult conditions, drugs or something different. And that those social conditions created a local context, then made adverse childhood experiences, level 3 here, possible. And then the way childhood these adverse childhood experiences negatively impact children is that they disrupt the development of children's brains, neurodevelopment. So neurodevelopment is disrupted here, and what you see is social, emotional, and cognitive impairment as a result of disrupted neurodevelopment. Now, it's very important to note at this point because this course, another name for this course that we're taking is social and emotional intelligence or social and emotional wisdom. The importance of this is that many of the things that these children have suffered as a result of disrupted neurodevelopment can be remedied. We're going to look at the fact that it can be prevented, but for people who have already suffered it, as many orphans as all orphans would have suffered many ACEs, you can teach them social and emotional skills that can help to be able to alleviate some of this. So again, we're looking at how ACEs impact health and well-being. We're seeing here that disrupted neurodevelopment leads to social, emotional, and cognitive impairment. And that now leads to adoption of health risk behaviors, okay? That because these children, because of social, emotional impairment, they lack the self-discipline, they lack the emotional self-control, they lack the ability to be able to delay gratification, they lack the ability to be able to set goals and work hard, to self-motivate. That these children, they lack the ability to be able to build strong relationships with people which are necessary for success in life. They often will not be able to get good jobs and things like that. And that because of the adoption of adoption of health risk behaviors, they end up having diseases, disability, and social problems, and many of them die early. Okay. Let's take a look here. ACEs can accumulate and their effects last beyond childhood. The effects of ACEs can add up. We see here one of the mechanisms, looking back here, that ACEs actually really hurt children, leading to disrupted neurodevelopment, is that children get exposed to toxic stress. Okay, the stress response is something that we as humans exhibit to be able to is part of how we live. Well, for example, when you have a stress response, which is also called the flight or fight response. Sometimes it's called the flight or fight or freeze response. During this state, your body has a heightened sense and catecholamines like norepinephrine, epinephrine, dopamine, and cortisol. Stress hormones are released in your blood. Well, this if it occurs in a short time, it can be adaptive. Well, but in these children, toxic stress happens and it becomes chronic and endures. There's repeated stress or sense of danger. This releases the hormones that I've talked about. Because it is chronic and continuous, it's going to get to a point where you see damages, okay, in the immune system, digestive systems. This fourth point, toxic stress can disrupt organ tissue and brain development. Over time, this can limit a person's ability to process information. They can't learn well, they can't pay attention well in school, make decisions, they have poor decision-making abilities, interact with others, and regulate emotions. And so they can have anger out, they may not be able to manage their anger, they get anxious and depressed. These are things that, again, happen as a result of chronic stress that becomes toxic stress. Okay, we're looking here at some of the chronic medical and cognitive or psychological problems that people have. Okay, ACEs can increase risk for disease and early and poor social outcomes. We see that here. We see here research shows that experiencing a high number of ACEs is associated with many of the leading causes of death like heart disease and cancer. Look here, heart disease, coronary heart disease, stroke, asthma, COPD, cancer, kidney disease, diabetes, obesity. All of these things things that are physical in nature, but they are affecting people who are adults, and that's a result of adverse childhood experiences. These are things they suffered as children, but they are affecting them as adults and killing them early. Mental health conditions, depression, suicide, or and things like that. Health risk behavior like smoking, heavy drinking, substance abuse, and stuff like that. Physical inactivity, risky sexual behavior, and so on the social level, they often are not employed. They may not have good jobs. And again, these are things that are true for many. I've been working with orphans now for since 2005, 2006, and I teach orphan care at Servants University, and I'm well researched, and I've started an organization that served thousands of orphans in Cameroon, and done a lot of work in terms of reading and teaching on this. It is clear that many children who go through orphan care programs do not end up being successful, not because they do not get sent to good schools, books are not provided, healthcare is not provided, food is not provided for, and they don't have a place to stay and all of that. But one of the missing links that is missing in the life of these kids, one of the things that is not getting addressed well is social and emotional learning to be able to help them address these ACEs that they've suffered. Okay, and this is something that this class is designed to be able to remedy and help prepare people who are going to care for to teach students from different backgrounds, or care for orphans and vulnerable children, or just care for children that are going through stressful times of stress in their life, regardless of their background. That this course will prepare them to be able to deal with that. Okay, here, this is a different presentation of some of the things we just looked at. Traumatic brain injury, fractures, burns. Adverse childhood experiences cause these kinds of injury, mental health, depression, anxiety, PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. Some of the adverse childhood experiences become or cause trauma in children. And not every adverse childhood experience directly causes trauma, but a lot of them do. And then from that trauma, you can get PTSD. Unintended pregnancy or pregnancy complications, fetal death, HIV, STDs, cancers, alcohol, drug, unsafe sex, education, they impact their ability to get good education, or get a good job, occupation, and affect their ability to earn good income. So, again, we've mentioned the fact that ACEs can echo across generations. The consequences of ACEs can be passed down from one generation to the next, and it is very important to be able to, when working with students from difficult backgrounds, or all students in general, to be able to learn and how to identify ACEs in their lives, and how to be able to engage in emotion coaching, and help them be able to deal with it. And as you're going to learn in this class, this starts by the person, the teacher, first of all, learning how to understand and manage their own emotions well in their life in general. So that prepares one to be able to do the same thing in terms of coaching and helping children. So the good news is that ACEs are preventable, okay, and improvable. Now, we see here, these are some recommendations from the CDC on how to address ACEs, or to prevent ACEs. Okay, we see here many of the people who are in our program at Servants University that are going into orphan care or poverty alleviation of some sort are already doing many of these things, like being able to selecting children, providing them basic health care, sending them to school so they can learn and have a good education, providing mentoring programs, after school programs for the ones that are studying, that are struggling. We in our program we visit children that are in our programs, to make sure that they're doing okay, that they're not getting, that there's no abuse. We can identify that and help work with the authorities when such abuse is going on. Then many of these things that are on this slide, you can read them, that are things that you will already be doing. Again, the key thing that many people are not doing, that plays a big part in determining future success in anybody, is social emotional intelligence, social emotional learning, which is what is highlighted here in yellow. And they highlighted parenting skills and family relationships. The people that are going to be acting as parents or caregivers, or that are going to be leading and developing these children from difficult backgrounds, they have to themselves have grown their social and emotional intelligence, have a higher emotional intelligence, so that they can not only control their own emotions and manage their own emotions well, when they're around these children, so that when an orphan throws a tantrum at you, or they have an anger outburst, you don't retaliate again. Also, you learn to control your emotions and be able to learn not only to control your emotions, but to be able to determine, to detect and recognize emotions in others and be able to help them manage them. That this class is going to teach you that. And I think that of all the classes that one could take to be able to prepare them to care for orphans, this is a foundational class that and if you can learn the skills and practice what is in here, you will have the opportunity to impact children from difficult backgrounds, especially orphans and vulnerable children, in a very big way. So social and emotional learning is a powerful tool for addressing ACEs. Now, well, looking at this slide here, research shows the following benefits of emotional intelligence coaching in kids compared to children with low emotional intelligence. Children with higher emotional intelligence are better able to pay attention, which is important for learning, are more engaged in school, important for learning, have more positive relationships and get along with friends better. They have fewer behavior issues, problems with teachers, problems getting into crime and things like that. They are less prone to acts of violence, are more emotionally healthy, have fewer negative feelings and more positive feelings. They are more empathic. They can put themselves in another person's shoes and are able to connect and understand other people and treat other people well. They have better physical health. Okay, they score higher academically, are more resilient and have more grit. They have a growth mindset instead of a fixed mindset. They deal better with ACEs, and they are better protected from the threats of youth violence, antisocial behavior, drug addiction, premature sexual activity, adolescent suicide, and all of that. And in the end, they live more successful lives. And this is the kind of thing that anybody who's caring for orphans and vulnerable children or children from difficult backgrounds wants. Okay, let's look at this this quote here from the famed psychologist and researcher John Gottman and his colleagues. Their research showed that children with emotion coaching parents were better off in areas of academic performance, social competence, emotional well-being, and physical health. Even controlling for IQ, their math and reading scores were better. They were getting along better with their friends. They had stronger social skills. Their mothers reported these children had fewer negative and more positive emotions. Several measures also indicated that the emotion coach kids were experiencing less stress in their lives. For example, they had fewer levels of stress-related hormones in their urine, like cortisol. They had lower resting heart rate, and according to their mother's reports, they were experiencing fewer infectious diseases such as colds and flu. Again, emotional intelligence or social emotional intelligence that you get through social emotional learning is crucial for success in life for anybody. All kinds of studies have been done among different specialties. Doctors, to be a successful doctor, you have to be good at social and emotional intelligence. To be a good engineer, the kinds of people that are promoted, the kinds of people that are successful, you need social and emotional intelligence. But this is crucial. This is crucial. It's a matter of life and death for people that are from difficult backgrounds, children from difficult backgrounds that become adults. Why? Because our childhood, growing up in good, healthy families, is usually the place where these social and emotional skills are supposed to be learned. But they have not only missed these opportunities, but the events, the ACEs they have gone through have inflicted trauma on them that actually makes any ability to develop these skills to be destroyed. So they have actually suffered harm where they should have been encouraged and helped to grow. So this becomes so important to them. This course will provide participants because of that with the knowledge, skills, and strategies to understand and manage their own emotions and those of their OVCs and children or students from difficult backgrounds.